when Sergeant Marcus Reynolds positioned his rifle scope on the young woman pushing a baby stroller through the abandoned industrial district of Camden Heights, New Jersey, he expected nothing more than a routine surveillance check. The morning fog had lifted just enough to reveal her silhouette moving with unusual purpose along the cracked asphalt of Factory Row, a desolate stretch of warehouses that had been empty since the economic collapse 5 years earlier. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Got a civilian female, approximately mid-20s, pushing what appears to be a standard infant stroller, Reynolds reported through his headset to the Tactical Command Center 3 blocks away. Heading northeast toward the old Mitchell Steel complex, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Martinez, commanding officer of the Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force, barely looked up from her surveillance monitors. Camden Heights had been designated a high-risk zone after intelligence suggested a domestic terror cell was operating somewhere in the industrial wasteland. For 3 weeks, her team had maintained around-the-clock observation, hoping to identify potential threats or suspicious activity. Probably just another homeless person looking for shelter, Martinez responded with the weary dismissal of someone who had overseen countless false alarms. Keep watching but maintain position. We can't afford to blow our cover for every vagrant who wanders through the zone. Olivia Carter adjusted her grip on the stroller handle, her green eyes scanning the broken windows of the surrounding buildings with the practiced awareness of someone who had learned to read danger in shadows and silence. At 24, she possessed an unassuming appearance that made her forgettable in crowds. Shoulder-length brown hair, average height, wearing the kind of worn jeans and faded sweater that suggested financial struggle rather than tactical preparation. What the surveillance team couldn't see from their elevated positions was the careful way Olivia navigated around debris, her movements suggesting familiarity with urban environments that went beyond casual knowledge. She paused at seemingly random intervals, adjusting the blanket that covered whatever lay in the stroller with a tenderness that appeared maternal but served a different purpose entirely. Reynolds tracked her progress through his scope, noting details that his training had taught him to catalog automatically. Subject is moving with unusual confidence for someone in potentially hostile territory. She's not displaying typical signs of fear or uncertainty. The assessment reached the ears of Captain Jake Morrison, the task force's behavioral analyst, who had been growing increasingly frustrated with their lack of progress in identifying the terror cell. Morrison had built his reputation on reading human psychology through surveillance footage. But 3 weeks of watching empty streets and false leads had left him questioning his methods. "Reynolds, can you get a clearer view of what's in the stroller?" Morrison asked, his curiosity piqued by something he couldn't quite articulate. "The way she's moving doesn't match the profile of someone simply seeking shelter or conducting routine business." From his position on the roof of a converted textile mill, Reynolds adjusted his scope's magnification and studied Olivia more carefully. The morning sun had burned away enough fog to reveal details that had been obscured earlier. Negative on the stroller contents. She's got it covered with what looks like a standard baby blanket. "But, sir, there's something about her posture that doesn't sit right with me." "Explain," Martinez interjected, her attention now fully focused on the developing situation. She's scanning the environment like someone with tactical training. Head movement patterns, the way she's positioning herself relative to cover points. This isn't random wandering. Olivia continued her methodical progress through the industrial maze, unaware that her every step was being observed by multiple sets of professional eyes. Her destination, the abandoned Mitchell Steel complex, had once employed nearly 3,000 workers before automation and foreign competition had rendered it obsolete. Now it stood as a monument to economic decline, its massive structures providing countless hiding spots for anyone seeking to avoid official attention. The complex held particular significance for Olivia, though not for reasons the surveillance team could have imagined. Her father, Daniel Carter, had worked as a security supervisor at Mitchell Steel for 15 years before the plant's closure. During those years, he had also served as a weekend instructor at the Riverside Shooting Club, teaching precision marksmanship to local law enforcement and competitive shooters. Daniel had been killed in a construction accident 2 years earlier, leaving behind a daughter who had inherited more than just his determination and work ethic. From the age of 12, Olivia had accompanied her father to weekend shooting sessions, initially as a way to spend time together but gradually developing skills that exceeded those of many professional marksmen. "Sir, she's approaching the main gate of the steel complex," Reynolds reported. "Should we intercept?" Martinez weighed her options, balancing operational security against the need to investigate potential threats. The task force had been authorized to use maximum discretion in identifying and neutralizing terrorist activities, but civilian interference could compromise months of preparation. "Maintain observation. Do not engage unless she displays overtly threatening behavior. Morrison, what's your read on her psychological profile based on current behavior?" Morrison studied the multiple camera feeds showing Olivia from different angles. Confident but not aggressive. Purposeful movement suggests she has specific knowledge of the area. The stroller could be a concealment for surveillance equipment, weapons, or materials related to the suspected cell's activities. What Morrison and his colleagues didn't know was that Olivia's presence in Camden Heights had nothing to do with terrorism. 3 days earlier, she had received a cryptic phone call from someone claiming to have information about her father's death. The caller had suggested that Daniel Carter's accident hadn't been accidental, and that evidence supporting this claim could be found in his old workplace. Olivia had spent months struggling with inconsistencies in the official accident report, questions that her father's former colleagues had been reluctant to discuss. The anonymous caller had provided specific details about Daniel's final day at the construction site that weren't included in any official documentation. Details that suggested someone had first-hand knowledge of events leading to his death. As she approached the steel complex's main entrance, Olivia paused to check the contents of her stroller. Beneath the carefully arranged blanket lay not an infant, but a sophisticated piece of equipment that represented her father's most prized possession, a custom-built precision rifle that he had assembled over years of competitive shooting. The weapon wasn't intended for violence, but for a very different purpose. Daniel had taught Olivia that true marksmanship wasn't about destruction, but about precision, patience, and the ability to achieve seemingly impossible accuracy under pressure. He had also taught her that sometimes the best way to reveal truth was to demonstrate capabilities that others had underestimated. "Movement at the gate," Reynolds announced. "She's manipulating something in the stroller. I can't get a clear visual on what she's handling." Quote, "The tension in the command center escalated as multiple scenarios played through the minds of experienced counterterrorism operatives. Weapons preparation, bomb activation, communication device operation, all were possibilities that demanded immediate response according to standard protocols. But Olivia's actions were far more subtle than anyone suspected. She was carefully assembling her father's rifle, not for an attack, but for a demonstration that would force the authorities to pay attention to information they had previously ignored. Her plan was desperate, born from months of frustrated attempts to get official attention for her father's case. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The anonymous caller had claimed that Daniel Carter had witnessed something at the construction site that made him a target. The evidence, supposedly hidden somewhere in the abandoned steel complex, would prove that his death was murder disguised as an accident, but getting authorities to investigate required making them take her seriously, and Olivia had concluded that conventional approaches had failed. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez studied the tactical display showing Olivia's position relative to her surveillance teams. "Morrison, I want a full threat assessment. If she's assembling something in that stroller, we need to know what we're dealing with." "Based on behavioral indicators, she doesn't match the profile of someone preparing for immediate violence," Morrison replied, though his voice carried uncertainty. "But the concealment method and location choice suggest planned activity that could be operational in nature." Reynolds maintained his scope of focus on Olivia, noting that her movements had become more deliberate and focused. "Sir, whatever she's doing, she's treating it with extreme care. This isn't random or amateur behavior." As the morning sun reached its peak intensity, Olivia completed her preparations and began moving deeper into the steel complex. Her father had shown her these grounds during weekend visits when she was younger, explaining the industrial processes and sharing stories about the men and women who had built their careers in the massive foundries and rolling mills. Now, those same buildings would serve as the backdrop for a demonstration that none of the watching operatives could have anticipated. Olivia Carter was about to prove that sometimes the most effective way to get attention from authority figures was to show them capabilities they didn't know existed, wielded by someone they had completely underestimated. The surveillance teams continued their careful observation, unaware that they were about to witness something that would challenge every assumption they had made about the quiet young woman with the baby stroller who had wandered into their carefully controlled operation. Olivia wheeled the stroller deeper into the Mitchell Steel complex, navigating through twisted metal debris and overgrown weeds that had claimed sections of the concrete pathways. The main foundry building loomed ahead, its broken windows creating dark apertures that once allowed workers to monitor the massive industrial processes within. She paused beside a partially collapsed loading dock, pulled out her phone, and dialed the number that had started this entire journey. "You came," said the gravelly voice that answered after the first ring. The man spoke with the careful cadence of someone accustomed to avoiding electronic surveillance. "Building 7, 3rd floor, northwest corner. There's a maintenance access that still works. Come alone, and bring what your father left you." The line went dead before Olivia could respond. She studied the complex layout, identifying Building 7 among the cluster of deteriorating structures. The voice belonged to someone who clearly knew both the facility and her father's background intimately. Moving with renewed purpose, she guided the stroller toward the designated location. From his elevated position, Sergeant Reynolds tracked her progress through increasingly challenging terrain. "Command. Subject is proceeding to the northern section of the complex. She's navigating like someone with detailed knowledge of the layout. This doesn't match random exploration patterns." Lieutenant Colonel Martinez had been growing increasingly concerned about the situation's development. Intelligence reports suggested the terrorist cell might be planning an operation within the next 72 hours, and any civilian presence could either be coincidental or directly related to those plans. "Reynolds, I want continuous visual contact. If she enters any building, you maintain overwatch of all exits." "Morrison, are we certain this isn't reconnaissance for a larger operation?" Captain Morrison reviewed the psychological profile he had been developing based on Olivia's behavior patterns. Her movement suggests specific objectives rather than exploratory activity, but the care she's showing for whatever's in that stroller indicates personal rather than operational value. I'm not reading terrorist preparation here. What Morrison couldn't see was the emotional weight Olivia carried as she approached Building 7. Every step through the industrial wasteland reminded her of weekend visits with her father, when Daniel Carter had shared stories about the skilled craftsmen who had built America's industrial backbone. He had spoken with pride about honest work and the dignity that came from mastering difficult skills. Building 7 stood partially intact, its lower floors flooded from years of neglect, but its upper levels still accessible through external fire escapes. Olivia secured the stroller and began climbing the rusted metal stairs, each step testing the structural integrity of decades-old steel. The rifle components, carefully wrapped in waterproof material, remained stable despite the challenging ascent. Inside the building's 3rd floor, she found herself in what had once been a quality control office. Broken machinery and scattered paperwork covered the floor, but someone had recently cleared a small area near the northwest windows. A folding chair sat beside a makeshift table constructed from concrete blocks and a piece of salvaged steel plating. "Daniel Carter's daughter." The voice came from the shadows near a collapsed section of ceiling. A man emerged slowly, his weathered face bearing the scars of industrial work, and his movements suggesting old injuries that hadn't healed properly. "I'm Tommy Brennan. Worked security here with your father for 12 years. Olivia recognized the name from her father's stories, though Tommy appeared far older than she remembered from brief childhood encounters. Years of hard living had aged him beyond his 50-something years, and his eyes carried the weight of someone harboring dangerous knowledge. "You said you had information about my father's accident," Olivia said, her voice steady despite the surreal nature of the meeting, evidence that it wasn't accidental. Tommy nodded grimly. "Your father saw something he shouldn't have seen. The construction site where he died wasn't just building residential housing. They were creating a storage facility for materials that certain people didn't want traced through official channels." Daniel recognized some of the equipment being installed, stuff that didn't match the building permits. The revelation struck Olivia like a physical impact. Her father had mentioned concerns about the construction project during their final conversation, questions about why certain areas were being over-engineered for simple residential use. "There's a communications antenna on the water tower, approximately 800 yards southeast," she said, her voice taking on the calm focus that characterized her shooting mindset. "It's feeding data to their command center. If I can disable it with surgical precision, they'll have to take me seriously enough to listen to what Tommy knows about my father's murder." The plan was audacious but carefully calculated. Olivia wasn't targeting personnel or creating genuine danger, but demonstrating capabilities that would demand professional respect. Her father had taught her that exceptional marksmanship could serve as a form of communication, a way to prove competence that couldn't be dismissed or ignored. From his observation post, Sergeant Reynolds noticed the sudden change in Olivia's positioning. "Command, subject has moved to an elevated position in Building 7. She appears to be... Wait, I'm seeing what looks like weapon preparation." The command center erupted into controlled chaos as multiple operators processed the implications of Reynolds' report. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez activated emergency protocols while Captain Morrison attempted to maintain an analytical perspective. "All units, we have potential hostile activity. The subject appears to be preparing for offensive action from an elevated position in Building 7. Prepare for immediate tactical response." But even as the anti-terrorism team prepared for engagement, none of them could have anticipated the precise nature of Olivia's intentions. She wasn't preparing for violence against people, but for a demonstration of skill that would force them to recognize capabilities they had completely underestimated. Through her scope, Olivia studied the communications equipment that linked the surveillance teams to their command structure. One precisely placed shot would disable their coordination without endangering personnel, creating exactly the kind of disruption that would demand investigation. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The rifle is just a tool, Olivia. The real weapon is your ability to see what others miss and accomplish what they think is impossible." As she prepared to squeeze the trigger, Olivia knew that the next few seconds would determine whether her father's death would remain officially forgotten or finally receive the investigation it deserved. The crack of Olivia's rifle echoed across the abandoned industrial complex like thunder, the sound reverberating off concrete walls and twisted metal structures. 800 yards away, the communications antenna on the water tower sparked and went silent, its delicate electronic components destroyed by a single, surgically precise shot that had threaded between support cables without touching them. In the command center, multiple screens went dark simultaneously as the primary data link failed. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez stared at the dead monitors in stunned silence, processing the implications of what had just occurred. Someone had just demonstrated sniper capabilities that exceeded the performance of her own trained marksman. The technical analysis began immediately. Sergeant Reynolds, still maintaining his observation position, provided real-time assessment through backup communication channels. "Command, I observed the entire sequence. Subject maintained textbook shooting position for approximately 47 seconds before firing. No scope adjustments during the final phase, suggesting she calculated all variables during initial setup." Staff Sergeant Angela Davis, the task force's senior marksmanship instructor, arrived at the command center within minutes of the communications failure. Her expertise in long-range shooting made her assessment crucial for understanding what they were dealing with. Davis studied meteorological data, wind speed measurements, and atmospheric conditions that would have affected the shot. Based on environmental factors at time of firing, that shot required compensation for crosswind, thermal layers, and elevation differential, Davis reported grimly. "Our best military snipers would need computer assistance for those calculations." She did it instinctively. The implications struck fear into experienced operators who understood the lethal potential of such precision. If Olivia had chosen to target personnel instead of equipment, multiple team members could have been eliminated before they even realized they were under fire. Captain Morrison found himself reassessing every assumption he had made about the young woman with the baby stroller. His behavioral analysis protocols had completely failed to identify the level of training and capability she possessed. The psychological profile he had developed now seemed embarrassingly inadequate. "All teams, communications array has been neutralized by single shot from Building 7, Martinez announced over backup radio channels. Suspect displays advanced marksmanship training. Treat as extremely dangerous and approach with maximum caution." Federal Agent Jennifer Walsh from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives had been monitoring the situation from the secondary command post. The precision demonstrated by Olivia's shot triggered protocols for dealing with individuals possessing exceptional weapons capabilities. Walsh immediately began coordinating with specialized units trained to handle high-level threats. The tactical response involved resources from multiple agencies. FBI hostage rescue team members positioned themselves around Building 7, while ATF specialists analyzed the ballistic evidence. The bullet that had destroyed the communications equipment was recovered intact, its condition providing detailed information about the weapon and ammunition used. "This is a match-grade projectile fired from a precision rifle," reported ATF ballistics expert Dr. Michael Rodriguez after preliminary examination. "Custom-loaded ammunition, probably handcrafted for maximum accuracy. We're looking at someone with access to professional-level equipment and the knowledge to use it effectively." Inside Building 7, Tommy Brennan watched tactical teams maneuvering into position around their location. Years of security work had taught him to read law enforcement deployment patterns, and he recognized the scale of response Olivia's demonstration had triggered. "You've got their full attention now," he told her as she methodically packed away her rifle components. "Every agency in the region is going to want answers about who trained you and where you acquired these skills." Olivia remained calm, despite the overwhelming response her single shot had generated. The demonstration had achieved exactly what she had intended, forcing authorities to recognize capabilities they had dismissed and creating circumstances where they would have to listen to evidence about her father's murder. "My father always said that respect had to be earned through competence," she replied quietly. "Now they know I'm not just another grieving family member making wild accusations." The negotiation phase began with standard protocols for high-risk situations. Hostage negotiator Detective Sarah Collins established communication through a portable public address system, her voice carrying clearly across the industrial complex. "This is Detective Collins with the Camden County Sheriff's Department. We want to resolve this situation peacefully. Please respond so we can begin dialogue." But Olivia's response surprised everyone monitoring the situation. Instead of engaging in traditional negotiation, she appeared at the third-floor window with her hands raised, Tommy Brennan beside her. Both were clearly unarmed and presenting no immediate threat. "We surrender voluntarily," Olivia called down to the tactical teams. "But I demand to speak with the ranking federal investigator about the murder of Daniel Carter and the illegal weapons operation he discovered." The words sent shockwaves through the command structure. The Anti-Terrorism Task Force had been investigating suspected domestic threats, but Olivia's claims suggested their surveillance target might have been entirely different from what they had assumed. Detective Rachel Phillips from the New Jersey State Police had been monitoring the situation from the peripheral command post. Her specialization in cold cases involving suspicious deaths made her the logical choice for evaluating Olivia's claims. Phillips had spent 15 years investigating cases where initial conclusions proved incorrect, and her reputation for thorough analysis had earned respect throughout law enforcement communities. As federal agents secured both Olivia and Tommy, Phillips reviewed what little information was available about Daniel Carter's death. The accident report she had briefly examined months earlier now took on new significance in light of the day's events and Olivia's extraordinary capabilities. The initial interrogation took place in a secure facility designed for processing high-risk suspects. Olivia sat calmly across from Detective Phillips, her demeanor suggesting someone prepared for intensive questioning rather than someone caught in criminal activity. "Ms. Carter, you just demonstrated capabilities that could classify you as a domestic security threat," Phillips began, her tone professional but not hostile. "The precision of your shot suggests training that exceeds civilian levels. Where did you acquire these skills?" "My father taught me," Olivia responded simply. Daniel Carter was a competitive marksman who believed that precision shooting required discipline, patience, and respect for the responsibility that came with exceptional abilities. "He started training me when I was 12 years old." Phillips made detailed notes while studying Olivia's responses for signs of deception or mental instability. Neither appeared to be present, despite the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. "Your claims about your father's death involve serious criminal allegations," Phillips continued. "Help me understand what you believe happened, and why conventional investigations failed to uncover evidence supporting your theories." Over the following hours, Tommy Brennan provided detailed testimony about the illegal weapons storage operation that Daniel Carter had discovered. His account included specific information about equipment installations, financial irregularities, and safety protocol violations that hadn't been documented in official reports. Documentation hidden in Tommy's former security office supported his claims about construction modifications that didn't match building permits. Purchase orders showed payments for electrical systems designed to handle power loads far exceeding residential requirements. Security logs recorded unusual after-hours activities involving personnel who weren't listed on regular construction crews. Meanwhile, forensic experts were analyzing every aspect of Olivia's demonstration. The communications antenna had been destroyed by a bullet that had passed through a gap between support cables, measuring less than 4 inches. Computer simulations indicated that achieving such precision required calculations involving wind speed, atmospheric pressure, temperature gradients, and equipment harmonics. This level of accuracy exceeds military sniper standards by significant margins, reported Chief Ballistics Analyst Dr. Jennifer Walsh. The environmental variables alone would challenge our most sophisticated computer modeling systems. We're looking at someone with extraordinary natural ability enhanced by exceptional training methodologies. The investigation expanded rapidly as federal agencies coordinated their resources. FBI forensic accountants began analyzing financial records associated with the construction company where Daniel Carter had worked. ATF specialists examined documentation related to equipment purchases and installations that might have been used for illegal weapons storage. The construction site where Daniel Carter had died was reopened for comprehensive forensic examination. Ground-penetrating radar revealed hidden compartments exactly where Tommy Brennan had described them. Residual chemical analysis detected traces of gun oil and metal particles consistent with weapons storage activities. Construction company owner Vincent Morrison was placed under surveillance while investigators gathered evidence. His financial records revealed connections to individuals with known ties to illegal arms trafficking networks. Communication intercepts showed discussions about eliminating problems that threatened operational security. But the most damning evidence emerged from security footage that had been deliberately concealed. Tommy Brennan led investigators to backup camera systems that had recorded activities during Daniel Carter's final day at the construction site. The footage clearly showed Morrison confronting Daniel about his questions regarding building modifications, followed by what was obviously a planned incident involving construction equipment. Digital analysis of the video revealed that safety protocols had been deliberately bypassed, and that equipment operators had received instructions that contradicted standard procedures. The sequence of events leading to Daniel's death showed clear evidence of premeditation and coordination among multiple participants. Additional evidence continued to accumulate as the investigation widened. Phone records documented communications between Morrison and known weapons dealers in the weeks leading up to Daniel Carter's death. Financial transfers showed payments to construction workers for services that weren't reflected in official project documentation. The weapons trafficking network Morrison had operated extended across 3 states and involved dozens of co-conspirators. Military-grade equipment worth millions of dollars had been moved through seemingly legitimate construction projects, with storage facilities hidden in buildings designed to appear as normal residential or commercial developments. 6 months after Olivia's dramatic demonstration in the Camden Heights Industrial District, the ripple effects of her actions continued to transform multiple institutions and countless individual lives. The Daniel Carter case had evolved from a dismissed accident report into a landmark investigation that exposed corruption spanning 3 states and involving dozens of co-conspirators. Vincent Morrison received a life sentence without possibility of parole for first-degree murder and federal weapons trafficking charges. His conviction triggered a comprehensive review of construction industry oversight that revealed systemic vulnerabilities in permit processes and safety inspections. Federal prosecutors used evidence from the Carter case to pursue additional charges against 17 co-conspirators involved in the weapons trafficking network. The construction site where Daniel Carter died became the focal point for recovering military-grade equipment worth over $40 million. Hidden storage compartments yielded assault rifles, explosives, and sophisticated communication equipment that had been destined for domestic terrorist organizations. The seizure represented one of the largest illegal weapons recoveries in New Jersey's history. Detective Rachel Phillips had been promoted to head the newly formed multi-agency cold case task force, a position created specifically to investigate suspicious deaths that might be related to organized criminal activities. Her success with the Carter case established protocols for reopening investigations when family members provided credible evidence suggesting official conclusions were incorrect. The task force's charter included partnerships with federal agencies, state police departments, and local law enforcement organizations. Phillips recruited investigators with diverse specializations, creating teams capable of handling complex cases involving financial crimes, organized conspiracies, and institutional cover-ups. The Carter case taught us that sometimes the most important evidence comes from sources we initially dismiss, Phillips explained during congressional testimony examining law enforcement procedures. Families possess intimate knowledge about victims that can reveal inconsistencies in official investigations. We've learned to take those concerns seriously from the beginning. The legislative impact extended beyond law enforcement reform. Senator Patricia Williams introduced the Carter Family Justice Act, federal legislation requiring law enforcement agencies to maintain open channels for family members seeking to provide additional evidence in closed cases. The bill included provisions for independent review panels and whistleblower protections for witnesses who came forward with information about criminal cover-ups. But perhaps the most significant transformation occurred in how exceptional abilities were recognized and nurtured within civilian populations. Olivia's demonstration had revealed gaps in military and civilian training programs that emphasized standardized techniques over individual capabilities and natural talents. The Carter Foundation for Justice and Marksmanship Education was established with funding from civil settlements totaling $12 million. The foundation provided legal resources for families seeking to reopen investigations into suspicious deaths, while also supporting competitive shooting programs that emphasized precision, responsibility, and ethical decision-making. Foundation programs extended beyond marksmanship training. Educational initiatives helped individuals with exceptional abilities find constructive applications for their talents. Scholarship programs supported students pursuing careers in forensic science, ballistics analysis, and criminal justice. Community outreach efforts connected families dealing with suspicious deaths to legal resources and investigative support. Olivia herself had enrolled in criminal justice studies at Rutgers University, her tuition and expenses covered by foundation scholarships she had helped design. Her academic focus combined forensic science with ballistics analysis, preparing her for a career that would honor her father's memory while utilizing the skills he had taught her. My father believed that exceptional abilities came with the responsibility to help others, Olivia explained during the foundation's inaugural ceremony. What happened in Camden Heights wasn't about proving I could make an impossible shot. It was about proving that sometimes you have to demonstrate competence before people will listen to the truth. The ceremony attracted law enforcement officials, military personnel, and families who had struggled to get official attention for their own cases involving suspicious deaths or criminal cover-ups. Media coverage brought national attention to issues surrounding family advocacy and the importance of keeping investigations open to new evidence. Tommy Brennan had transformed his experience as a whistleblower into a consulting career helping other witnesses safely present evidence to authorities. His work with the foundation included developing protocols for protecting individuals who possessed information about criminal activities but feared retaliation for coming forward. The security consulting business Tommy established specialized in helping whistleblowers document evidence, establish their credibility, and navigate complex legal processes involved in challenging official conclusions. His first-hand experience with the Carter case provided valuable insights for other families facing similar circumstances. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez used lessons learned from the Carter case to develop new protocols for civilian-military cooperation. Her task force now included liaisons specifically trained to evaluate information provided by family members and community witnesses who might possess crucial knowledge about criminal activities. The military's approach to recognizing exceptional capabilities among civilian populations underwent comprehensive revision. Training programs were developed to help military personnel identify and appropriately utilize specialized skills that existed outside traditional military structures. These initiatives improved intelligence gathering and operational effectiveness, while building stronger relationships between military units and civilian communities. We learned that dismissing civilian capabilities based on assumptions can blind us to resources that might be essential for successful operations, Martinez testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee. The Carter case demonstrated that exceptional skills exist throughout civilian populations, and recognizing them can enhance rather than threaten professional operations. The shooting range where Daniel Carter had trained Olivia underwent significant expansion with foundation support. The facility became a memorial site and training center for law enforcement officers seeking to improve their marksmanship skills while learning the philosophical approaches Daniel had emphasized: patience, observation, and respect for the responsibility that came with precision capabilities. Advanced training programs at the memorial facility attracted students from military units, law enforcement agencies, and competitive shooting organizations. Instructors emphasized not just technical skills, but ethical decision-making and the psychological preparation required for high-stakes situations, where precision could mean the difference between justice and tragedy. The deepest transformation had occurred within Olivia herself. The shy, grieving daughter, who had felt powerless to get justice for her father, had discovered that exceptional abilities, properly applied, could challenge systems and create change that extended far beyond individual cases. Her academic performance at Rutgers reflected the confidence and focus she had developed through her extraordinary experience. Professors noted her unique perspective on criminal justice issues and her ability to analyze complex cases with insights that came from personal experience with systemic failures and successful reform efforts. Olivia brings a perspective to criminal justice education that can't be taught from textbooks, observed Dr. Maria Rodriguez, her forensic science professor. Her understanding of how families interact with law enforcement systems, combined with her technical knowledge of ballistics and evidence analysis, makes her an exceptional student and future professional. On quiet Sunday mornings, Olivia visited the memorial shooting range where her father's legacy lived on through students learning not just technical skills but ethical principles. The custom rifle that had made the impossible shot was displayed in a place of honor, accompanied by an inscription that captured Daniel Carter's teaching philosophy: precision serves justice when guided by patience and powered by love. The range hosted annual competitions that attracted participants from across the region. These events emphasized not just accuracy, but the philosophical foundations of responsible marksmanship. Prize funds supported scholarships for students pursuing careers in law enforcement, forensic science, and criminal justice. But the memorial's most important function was providing a space where families dealing with suspicious deaths could find support, resources, and hope. Support groups met regularly, sharing experiences and strategies for navigating complex legal processes. Legal clinics provided pro bono assistance for families who couldn't afford private attorneys. The shot that had echoed across Camden Heights had become something much larger, a catalyst for examining how society recognized potential, investigated truth, and honored the memory of those who died seeking justice. Olivia's demonstration had proven that sometimes the most profound changes begin not with violence or authority, but with the courage to show the world capabilities they never knew existed. Years later, when other families approached the foundation seeking help with their own cases involving suspicious deaths or criminal cover-ups, they would find resources and support that hadn't existed before Daniel Carter's daughter decided to push that baby stroller into an abandoned industrial district and show trained professionals what they had missed. The Foundation's case files grew to include hundreds of successful investigations that had resulted from families being taken seriously when they presented evidence about official conclusions they believed were incorrect. Each success story validated Daniel Carter's belief that truth would ultimately prevail when people had the courage to pursue it with patience and precision. The legacy continued to grow, carried forward by the understanding that exceptional abilities exist in unexpected places, waiting for the right moment and the right cause to reveal themselves in ways that can change everything. Olivia's impossible shot had become a symbol of hope for everyone who refused to accept that justice was beyond their reach, no matter how powerful the forces arrayed against them. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.